Good evening, everyone. We would like to welcome everyone here this evening. We are delighted to have a number of newcomers to this MIG Women in Faith Forum, and we hope all of you will join us again for our future forums. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land where we meet and pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Now, it's the MIG tradition to start our meeting with a prayer. I'd like to invite Kamla Reddy, who is a management committee member and the leader of the Intercultural Book Club, to read it, please.
Good evening, everyone. Greetings from Kamla. This is the MIG prayer. Almighty Creator, guide the Monash Interfaith gathering to be a true collaborative representation of various faiths and beliefs. Show us how to become a committed group, working together toward understanding, respect, dignity, and justice for all citizens in our community. Keep us single-minded to defend the rights of each individual to practice and celebrate their own religion, and respect the rights of others to hold their chosen beliefs or non-beliefs. Help us build bridges between people of all faiths and beliefs within the community of Monash so that all of us attain a peaceful and fruitful coexistence. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamla. Good evening again, and welcome to a very special event by the Monash Interfaith Gathering, which will be celebrating the achievements of 5 women of different faiths who have contributed to our society through their inspiring work. This Women in Faith Forum has been brought together to acknowledge the importance role of women of faith and the extraordinary lengths to which they go to promote understanding and unity in our society. The committee also felt it was important to give more active recognition to the women in faith communities, which is not always the case. And what a wonderful opportunity to bring together women of different cultural backgrounds and learn about their background and their religion, and for us all to learn. Now, I'm delighted to introduce Myra Zymer. Myra has been participating in the MIG online Intercultural Book Club for quite a while, and she loved it so much that she decided to join the MIG membership. She was invited to join the working group responsible for planning this event and has accepted the role of Master of Ceremonies. So thank you, Myra, and it's over to you now.
Thank you, Sophie, for that. Welcome, everyone. Our first speaker of the evening is Sherene Hassan, who is the Education Director at the Australian Islamic Museum in Northcote. Her museum tours seek to transform perceptions and promote respectful interfaith dialogue. She also runs a program called Coffee with Sherene to enable people of different cultures to meet and learn from each other. Since 2001, she has conducted over 1,000 information sessions to diverse groups. In 2007, Sherene was selected by the Age newspaper as one of Melbourne's 100 most influential people. And in 2016, she was awarded Muslim Woman of the Year at the Australian Muslim Achievement Awards. On January the 26th, 2018, Sherene was awarded an Order of Australia medal. Welcome, Sherene.
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak. It's an absolute honour to be part of this event. I'd like to begin in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we gather on today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. So I'll be talking about the Islamic Museum of Australia. The museum is an exciting and unique centre showcasing the rich heritage, arts and achievements of Muslims in Australia and abroad. And sadly, we are closed at the moment, but we are hoping, God willing, inshallah, to be open in November. If you haven't been to the museum, you can do a virtual tour of the Islamic Museum. And we've also got a lot of online programs. So please make a connection to the museum if you haven't already done so. So it was recognised that an Islamic museum was required many years ago. There's no dedicated space. Many Muslims were organising mosque tours. They were visiting students in schools. And it became to be a little bit difficult and challenging for many reasons. For me personally, I would conduct mosque tours on a regular basis. I was doing a mosque tour at Sunshine Mosque for 200 students at a local school. And on the same day, we also had a funeral prayer at the mosque. So we had 200 morning worshippers and 200 screaming teenagers. So not the greatest combination. And there was one time I was giving a mosque tour at the Jeffcott Street Mosque, and sometimes homeless people from Flagstaff Gardens used to come to our mosque to have a shower. And one man was sort of trapped in the bathroom. 100 elite private school girls were in the room next door, and he actually ran right across with a tiny little hand towel, much to the shock and horror of teachers and students. So many examples of why a dedicated space was required. Melbourne has Chinese Museum, Jewish, Hellenic, Museo Italiano, so it makes sense that we have an Islamic museum to add to this very rich multicultural landscape. The official opening of the museum was 2014. Prior to that, well, actually it took about 3 years for the museum to be established. The founder is Mustafa Fahor, and he assembled a team of volunteers to establish the Islamic Museum, and we had wonderful support from the community, from the wider community, and from the Muslim community as well, in particular the Pakistani community, led by Aisha Bucks, instrumental in really assisting us in our early days to collect urgently needed funds. And there were many other communities as well that also came on board with the wider community. This is our opening, 2014. It was a very lavish affair. Someone had a harebrained idea of hiring a live camel. The camel actually splashed me. I was all decked out in my best outfit, and he actually urinated and splashed me in the process of doing so. Yeah, it was a bit of a crazy night, but it was a lot of fun, a very memorable occasion. The architecture of the museum is really quite impressive, and it's basically a fusion between Australian surroundings and Islamic design principles. So you've got the white geometric tiles, you've got an Arabic verse from the Quran that says, "We narrate to you stories so you may reflect." And then you've got the Australian component, which is the rusted corten veil, which is supposed to evoke the Australian outback. And we had a Turkish visitor years ago who said, "Oh, your building's beautiful, but your steel must be very poor quality because it's rusted so quickly. It's such a new building. Why is it rusted so quickly?" The foyer of the museum is very impressive as you walk in, and there are 5 permanent exhibitions. So each gallery has been carefully curated, and there's a strategic message behind each gallery. So with the Islamic Faith Gallery, we've got the Islamic Contribution to Civilization Gallery, Islamic Art, Architecture and Australian Muslim History. We also have a visiting exhibition. So every 3 to 6 months, the visiting exhibition changes. And one of my favourite visiting exhibitions was a collaboration between an Australian Jewish artist, Damon Kowarski, and a Pakistani Muslim, Atif Khan. And they came together in collaboration to create a beautiful exhibition called Hybrid, and I'd encourage you to look that one up. So with the Islamic Faith Gallery, it basically provides an introduction to the beliefs and pillars of Muslims. It also helps debunk some of the stereotypes associated with Islam and Muslims, for example, women. There's a very important picture here of a sort of prophetic tree. So it's illustrating 25 prophets that are mentioned in the Quran. And there's a panel next to it that actually mentions the status of Jesus in Islam and the fact that Muslims believe in the virgin birth of Jesus. This is stunning paper cutting work. The artist's name is Youssef Ahmed. He's from Perth. He has Pakistani heritage. Youssef created this piece. It is 99 words to describe the qualities of God. And this piece has been handmade from 3 pieces of paper. Took him about 4 months to create, and it's 99 words to describe God's qualities. And what I really enjoy when I conduct tours at the Islamic Museum, and I proudly show this beautiful piece of art, we have a lot of atheists that come to the museum and they wouldn't really appreciate anyone talking to them about God, but because this art is so beautiful and impressive, they're drawn in to learn more about God's qualities, which is described in the panel next to it. Our quotes wall, for me, I think is a great bridge between Muslims and people of other faiths and no faith. And it helps people understand the commonalities and similarities that we share in all religions. So, for example, the one that really strikes me is none of you truly believe unless they love for others what they love for themselves. And that's a teaching in Islam, but it's also a teaching in Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, even humanism. Even people who don't believe in God subscribe to this teaching. Repel evil with good and you will find your enemy will become a devoted friend. I often share the story of the fact that as a Muslim leader, I get a lot of hate mail. And I always feel, I feel this need to respond to this hate mail. I don't just ignore it, I always respond to it. And one man, his name was Dave, he sent me this horrible email, beep Muslims, go back to where you came from. You want to do this, you want to do that. I'm like, hey, Dave, how you going? No Muslim I know wants to do any of those things. And he kept emailing me with the most outrageous, offensive, sweeping generalizations about Islam and Muslims. And I felt compelled to respond to Dave. And he stopped emailing me for a few weeks, which was a nice break. And then I click on my inbox a few weeks later and I see his name there. I'm thinking, what does Davo want now? And it's this animation, 2 puppy dogs, love hearts, and says, you are one of my dearest friends, send this to 6 of your dearest friends. So this, this guy who hated my guts is suddenly sending me a friendship chain email. The next gallery is Islam's contribution to civilization. And I begin the talk in this gallery by acknowledging the fact that Muslim scholars, Jewish, Christian, Zoroastrian scholars, and people of other faiths came together 1,000 years ago. They were making their own inventions, improving on existing inventions, and translating the works, the Greeks, the Romans, the Indians into Arabic, and then that knowledge was spread around the world. So this gallery really does highlight what happens when we come together to collaborate. So this particular, sorry, I'm just conscious of time, so I'm just rushing through a few of the slides. The Islamic Art Gallery is probably my favourite gallery. I'm actually a scientist, I'm a science teacher, so I had a great aversion to art before I got involved at the Islamic Museum. My art teacher in year 10 held my art up to the class and said, this is how not to do it. So I really struggled with art when I was young, but being involved in the museum, I can see what a powerful medium art is to engage with hearts and minds. And this particular mosaic, it's created by a beautiful artist by the name of Anisa Sharif. And what I love about Anisa is that she Actually, most of the art that she creates, not all of it, but most of the art that she creates is community art projects. So she brings women from all different faiths and no faiths to come together to create stunning mosaic. So she uses art to bring women together. This is a gorgeous piece as well. This is, there's a woman called Kath Braid. She's an Australian artist, and she went to Chitral in Pakistan, and she asked the women of Chitral, what are you praying for? And this is a collection of the prayers of 100 women. And these prayers have been hand embroidered in Urdu. And some of these prayers, one woman's praying that her pimples go away, another woman's praying that she marries somebody really rich, but most of the prayers are about peace in their home, in their village, in their country, in the world. No one's praying for Muslim domination around the world. So this piece of art allows us to enter the hearts and minds of these amazing women that are thousands and thousands of miles away. This is one of my favourite pieces. It's called The Big Jihad. The artist, the sculptor, Abdurrahman Abdullah, is trying to reclaim the word jihad. Jihad does not mean holy war. Jihad means struggle. And the biggest struggle is the internal struggle, the struggle that we all have to try and be the best version of ourselves. And we're all going through the struggle of COVID at the moment, but we try and be resilient and calm and patient in the face of such a difficult test. Next gallery is the Architecture Gallery, and then we have the Australian Muslim History Gallery. And this gallery is really important because it captures the history of Muslims in Australia. So the first Muslims to come to Australia were the Makassan fishermen, and they came from what we now refer to as Indonesia. They asked permission to land in Australia. They gave gifts to First Nations people, and they started a very meaningful trade relationship with First Nations people. So they were the Makassan fishermen. They came in the 16 and 1700s. Some reports say 1600s, some say 1700s, and that trade relationship lasted for centuries. The Afghan camel drivers came in the 1800s. They built railway tracks and telegraph lines and transported supplies right around Australia. So they made a huge contribution to Australia, but sadly, most Australians are not aware of the contributions that they made, and even Muslims aren't aware. So it's really important that we capture this history and share this with the rest of Australia so Muslims themselves can have a greater connection to Australia, and so the wider community can appreciate the contributions that Muslims have made to this wonderful nation. So the education program at the Islamic Museum is really quite really popular. We get excellent feedback from our visitors. And I wanted to share this quote with you. This is by James Banks from the University of Washington, The Importance of Educating Children and Educating Children to Understand and Respect Difference. The most important skill we can teach our children is how to get along with others. The world's greatest problems do not result from people being unable to read and write. They result from people in the world from different cultures, races, religions, and nations being unable to get along to solve the world's intractable problems. So a visit to the Islamic Museum can help students understand the other, help students cultivate respect. This is feedback from a teacher at Erasmus Primary School. We loved the day. It was so important for us to come, and we learnt so much. The students were very grateful, and a number of them wrote about how it completely changed their perception of Islam. Thank you so much for the heart and commitment you put into your work. Student feedback is also very positive. The question here, have your views about Islam changed? If so, how? Yes, I don't feel worried about them, and now I feel safe and secure. We've had students who have, in their feedback form, stated that they have stayed up all night, terrified about the fact that they were going to visit the Islamic Museum and meet Muslims. We've had students who have hidden from the school bus because they were so reluctant to visit the Islamic Museum. And then they have told us that after they visit the museum, it's been one of their best excursions. We've had a 92-year-old woman who said to me, "You're the first Muslim I've ever spoken to." And for years, I have felt crippled with fear towards Islam and Muslims. And now that I've visited your museum and seen how beautiful it is and, met friendly Muslims, now that fear has dissipated. I wanted to talk briefly about a really important program that I feel so honoured to be part of, and it's called the Museums Together program. So, back in 2015, I met a woman, her name is Ilana Kempler, and she was touring the museum with a Jewish community group, and she took me aside. She said, Sherene, I've got this idea. I want somehow to bring Jewish students to the Islamic museum, and I want Muslim students to reciprocate that visit, and the Muslim students to visit the Jewish museum. What can we do? How can we make it happen? And I said, look, I would certainly be on board. The Jewish Museum went and sought funds, and they got money from the Sydney Maya Foundation, and this amazing program was born. In 2019, 100 students were involved in the project, and we're running the project this year. It came to an abrupt halt due to the lockdown, but we will be reopening it in November. And what's so heartening about the feedback that we received in 2019, these were 100 grade 6 students, and I received feedback from Jewish students and from Muslim students, and it was the same feedback. The feedback that I received was that during their grade 6 graduation ceremony, students spoke on stage and told their friends and colleagues and parents that the best part of their 6 years at school was this Museums Together project. And I'd really encourage you to look it up. I'll be happy to send you some information about it if you're not aware of it. So in 2017, I'm not sure if you remember, but a woman by the name of Sonia Kruger made quite offensive and outrageous comments calling for a moratorium on Muslim migration. And I'm no stranger to, hate speech like that in the media. Pauline Hanson, Andrew Bolt, so many people who subscribe to those very negative views. But for the first time, it was a TV celebrity that actually made these comments. And it was a very, very difficult time for the Muslim community. So many of us felt that we had been working in this space, reaching out to the wider community, doing everything we could to build bridges, promote harmony. And we felt that these comments had just taken us, 10 steps backwards. And it was very, very challenging. The tension in the wider community was palpable. And I remember writing a letter to the Age newspaper. And what I found was that there were people in the community, and I'm sure the group that I'm speaking to today are this group of people. This group of people went out of their way to show kindness and warmth and support to the Muslim community. And then on the other hand, so it was like a dichotomy, on the other hand, there were people who went out of their way to show hatred and negativity towards the Muslim community. So I wrote a letter to the Age newspaper, and I just wanted to acknowledge the wonderful people that have chosen the path of understanding and education and instead of the path of fear. And I said, thank you so much for what you do, and you just make this world a better place. And I want to invite you to the museum for a coffee, my shout. And so this letter was published in the Age newspaper. A few people responded to it. A few emails, a few letters, nothing substantial. And a woman by the name of Fiona Scott Norman saw the letter, and she contacted me and organised a Facebook group, an event, and she called it Coffee with Sherene. And she said, Sherene, just come to the museum on Saturday. I'd love you to meet some of my friends. And I thought there'd be like 5 or 10. There was 55 friends that she brought with her, and it was such an amazing event. Magda Zabansky was there. You'll see her in the photo. She actually went on Q&A a few weeks later, and she referred to the event. And since that, I didn't really like the name of Coffee with Sherene, so I changed it to Coffee with a Muslim. And since then, we've had about 7 or 8 events right around Victoria. And the last thing I'd like to share with you before I finish up was the Mosque Open Day that took place in 2019. The Islamic Council of Victoria was responsible for putting together Mosque Open Day. And I think it was the second year that it was running. I think the first year it was running was 2018. And then we were supposed to be having Mosque Open Day in 2019. But the Christchurch terror attacks occurred 2 days prior to the Mosque Open Day. So Friday, Jummah prayer, 51 Muslims were gunned down while praying in 2 mosques in Christchurch. And it was a very, very challenging time for all Muslims. So you can imagine the Mosque Open Day was scheduled to take place 2 days after these terrorist attacks. And the ICV met with mosques and the Islamic Museum and said, should we go ahead? And every mosque except 2 agreed to go ahead, and the Islamic Museum said, yes, we will go ahead with Museum Open Day. So instead of Mosque Open Day, we called it Museum Open Day. We had over 700 visitors come and see us. And these visitors came, they didn't come to visit the Islamic Museum, they just came to reach out to the Muslim community. They came with flowers, they came with gifts, cards, and hugs. It was a good thing we didn't have COVID then, because there's so many bear hugs, and it was so therapeutic and so cathartic. And I can't tell you the impact that had and on so many Muslims. And it really, for me personally, it gave me the strength to keep going. So I just want to, I'll just finish up here. I want to acknowledge the wonderful work that you all do. I want us to all remember the need to choose knowledge over ignorance, to choose love over hate, to choose hope over fear. And we need to continue to build bridges with one another, because if we want this amazing country of ours to become even more amazing, it's just what we have to do. So keep doing the wonderful work that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sherene. That was so enlightening, everything that you told us. You've emphasized the great importance of different cultures getting to know each other. And it's the face-to-face. We need to meet up with each other, no matter what faith we belong to. Your building is unbelievable. I absolutely love the building, but the beauty also of the building is that you brought in the different faiths to construct this magnificent building of yours. Congratulations, it's wonderful. And thank you for everything that you're doing, because it's for the community. You're doing it for all of us. Thank you very much.
My honor. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, our second speaker of the evening will be Nirmala Narsimhan. She volunteers her time to the Hindu temple in Huntingdale. Nirmala has worked in areas of child protection, youth justice, and family violence as a social worker for many years. She also worked with refugees and migrants in New Zealand, retiring in 2020 to migrate to Australia to join her family. Nirmala is passionate about social justice and working with children and families from diverse backgrounds, supporting them to achieve their best potential. Nirmala is a member of many organizations promoting social justice and cultural diversity. She has much to tell us about her many roles and interests. Please welcome Nirmala. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction, Myra, and I thank the organizers for the opportunity to present this evening. It is an honor to be part of this group and to be able to present today. To introduce myself, my name is Nirmala Narsimhan, and I've basically come from New Zealand, and I've been in Melbourne for the past 6 months. My journey into this area of work started in New Zealand when I started work first coming to New Zealand as a new migrant in 1999, and then requalified as a social worker and started working in the area of child protection, youth justice, fostering, etc. And while working in the area of child protection, one of the factors that I noticed was, while the law was, in New Zealand, while the law was applicable to all, and it is the same law that is applied, the practice when applying to migrants and refugees, there was a need for the practice to be slightly different because of the various other factors that are involved with migrants and refugees. The entire background, the cultural context, all that needs to be taken into account. And this led me to the area of domestic violence, as I was also part of the family safety team, one of the first teams to be set up as an interagency response to family violence in Hamilton, New Zealand. And within that, we formed a small group who were equally passionate in this area of working with migrants and refugees, and to have a differential response, which is more conducive to working with migrants and refugees, where we could insist, or when we could ensure the safety of the victims and make sure that the cultural context is taken into account. The cultural context, and from there started the journey of setting up the Hamilton Ethnic Women's Center, which is now one of a larger organization working with different ethnicities, and working in the area of domestic violence, also supporting women through domestic violence, and making sure we empower them so that they can reach their full potential. So that's where the story started for my foray into domestic violence and the work in domestic violence. Since then, subsequently, I've also worked in other domains of social work practice, such as health, education, and finally, just before retirement, early last year, it was in working with migrants and refugees through the Red Cross. So once being in Melbourne, once, as they say, once a social worker, always a social worker. And I went to the temple, which is something which always gives me a certain amount of peace of mind. And at the temple, that Sanket Mochan, the temple, I found the different areas that they are also working in. And one of the areas was Hamtum, which is respectful relationships, working in the area of domestic violence. And I offered my voluntary service for them. So that's perspective is what I'm coming from right now, part of the Hamtum Respectful Relationships unit of the Sanket Mochan Samiti. So the topic that I'm talking about is domestic violence or family violence in ethnic communities, and the strategies that can be used from an ethnic perspective, what we use within this organization. Domestic violence is basically a worldwide problem. It has no barriers of class, race, or financial status. It does not restrict itself to religion or community or nothing. There is no boundaries. It pervades everywhere. And different cultures may experience domestic violence in different ways. And with the growing ethnic community population in Australia, the statistics that is shown right now is one woman being killed every 9 days by a current or former partner. There is an urgent need to have some clear guidelines, some clear perspectives, which include cultural factors when working with migrants and refugees. When we talk of Hamtum, in Hamtum, we talk of respectful relationships, and our belief is that prevention is better than cure. And basically what we mean is that we like to start at the initial end itself, at the beginnings of anything, call us so that we can talk to everyone concerned, make sure that you have a safety, you know how to be safe, you know how to keep yourself safe, and you do know what is safety and what to do. One of the big differences I'd like to talk about is domestic violence and what is family violence, the difference between domestic violence and family violence. When talking about domestic violence, we are talking about a violent behavior between a current or former intimate partner relation, where one partner tries to exert power and control over the other through physical, sexual, emotional, social, verbal, spiritual, and economic abuse. And what is that when we start addressing this? When we're talking of violence issues, we're talking of start talking about it, break the silence. Don't keep quiet, talk to somebody, tell somebody, talk by spreading the awareness. And those of us who are strong, who do know what it is, spread the awareness of what is right behavior, what is right relationships, what is respect within relationships. And for those who are facing that, reach out, because there is always help available. So these are the various aspects when we talk of domestic violence. With ethnic communities, we prefer to talk of family violence because it is a broader term, as it includes domestic violence. And it is a more appropriate term for violence in ethnic communities, as it covers the extended family and kinship relations in which violence may occur. Very often in ethnic families, you will find 2-3 generations living together. And it is a norm. Living together with 2 or 3 generations is a norm. And therefore, any kind of violence erupting in this is included as part of family violence. And therefore, when dealing with ethnic communities, we feel that it's always better to talk of it as family violence instead of restricting it to domestic violence, which is intimate partner relationships. So what are the factors and the frameworks that we use when we talk of the domestic violence and how we start addressing this? Now here, when talking of this, I'm going to be giving examples of the various places where I've worked and what people have said and how people react to when challenged with violence, when challenged with their attitudes and challenged with the kind of attitudes and behavior of violence. Violence can be of all kinds. There are various ways by which people can be violent, even if they are not physically violent, talking down, or not allowing the victim to contact their families or friends, or humiliating the vulnerable person, threatening them, or just verbal threats, verbal abuse. All this also forms part of violence. It is not something that is unknown, and it is not seen as, it is not to be taken as, part of just normal behavior. Very often, cultural values, it seems that cultural values normalize violence. That is not acceptable in any culture. No culture allows for violence. No culture condones violence. Every culture condemns violence. But those with power will always pretend and would like to say that this is our cultural part and this is what is our culture. There is no culture which condones violence. Every culture condemns violence. One of the important factors to consider when we're talking of the factors and the framework is the time of arrival of some of the victims or some of these families. When somebody says that they have arrived they've been here for 3 months in this part of the world, they've left their country and just been here for 4 months, one of the first things is the fact that they do not have community connections. They do not have too many people with whom they can talk. And in many ways, the small little links that they have, the small little link that they may have is the husband's immediate family, or the wife, or a person that they may be connected to at place of work. But there is a huge fear to be able to talk. The fear keeps them silent. And silence is this silence, which also involves fear, shame, the stigma that is attached, all that being connected with that silence is why you will have generally less people reporting domestic violence from ethnic communities, less people asking for help in ethnic communities, less people wanting to talk about domestic violence in ethnic communities. I've often come across situations when I go to talk about domestic violence in ethnic communities to any particular community, and they immediately say, this does not happen in our community. That's not true. Every community has domestic violence. Every community will hide the violence under the guise of culture because it is a shame to talk about it. And what is the background of most of these, most of the migrants and refugees who come into a new country is a background of patriarchy. The family structure is patriarchal. And when the family structure is patriarchal, the man is conditioned to be the head of the family. He has that role imprinted so strongly in him that any role which is other than the head of the family he's unable to take that, unable to see it as something that in a way he's also contributing. So when people come to a new country, one of the things that we had seen in our work is that women seem to get a job sometimes very quickly. And women, when they take up a job, the role reversal takes place where the man is still looking for a job, whereas women have been able to get a job and bring in the bread, some kind of money into the family kitty. Now, with women having that financial strength and the financial ability, women start thinking, having a feeling that they have also a say in things. And that is a huge impact on a man who's been conditioned to a role of man in the family, the head of the family. And this role reversal has a huge role to play in the relationship between the male members in the family, because of the fact that the male has been trained, conditioned to be the provider. And from that starts the disturbance in the relationships. And with that comes also the fact that his role is threatened, and therefore he starts putting her down. I remember one instance where we had a family meeting to address the violence. And I told the man that he is battering his wife. And he turned around and told me, don't talk of the word battering. I am not a batterer. I have only given her 2 slaps. Now, 2 slaps or 1 slap or 15 slaps, a slap or raising a hand is violence. Putting her down is violence. Not even accepting raising a hand is violence in itself, is an abuse in itself. So the attitude is, if I hit, that's the only way it is violence. Otherwise, it is not violence. The time of arrival also makes the woman very vulnerable, because she usually sits at home with the children, whereas a man goes out to seek a job. He may get the job, he may take up a job which keeps him outside his immediate home and is able to make connections. The woman is still isolated. She's isolated from community, isolated from her family, isolated from connecting with anybody, and that isolation leads her to be withdrawn. And with that, any abuse of any form, she lumps it. It is take it or leave it or lump it. She lumps it, mainly because of the fact she has no options. Also, one of the huge issues that we have seen in the 20 years of working in the area of domestic violence is the fact that women, most of the migrants and refugees we have worked with come from cultures that are collective cultures. And what I mean by collective cultures is the difference between a Western philosophy of individualism as against a culture or collective culture, which is everyone is important except me. My family is important, my husband is important, my child is important, and I sacrifice for everybody's sake, but I want to keep the family together so that everybody is happy. and I am not the important person. And that's a collective culture that most of the migrants come from. A collective culture thinks of others more than themselves. And whereas once you come here, you do see the individual culture where the woman is as important also. The woman has a say, and that is something that she struggles with. And so if you were to talk to a victim and say, oh, this is, you are going through violence, you need to move, you need to find a different option, it is just not going to move. She's not going to move. She's not going to accept that she needs to have a change, because it's like peeling layers after layers and layers of the onion, where she comes from the collectivism from where she comes, the collective philosophy from which she comes is threatened. That is already putting a big pressure on her. The family and the patriarchal structure puts a pressure on her. And added to that, she faces the racism in this new environment that she's come. That is another pressure on her. Her own culture, where she comes from, has roles and hierarchies where she has a particular role to play. That is threatened. And also her role as a good wife and a good mother that she has to, all that is something that is threatened. So she is unable to get out of that. The shame, if she gets out of that, which she will face, the shame that will be part of her family shame, the shame that will be extended to any other member in the family. She doesn't want to topple any of that. And so she is silent. And so she will keep bearing that. And that's where the empowerment comes in. So in working with ethnic families and ethnic women especially, one of the most important areas to look at is, how do we empower her? Use culture, to the cultural norms, to help her see she is not the cause of it, to help her see it is not her culture that is cause of it. It is the person in power who has twisted and used that to control her, to help her work through these issues. And that is what is done as part of a counseling session in the place that I am working right now, that I'm volunteering right now. As part of working, we provide some assessments, and then one of the most important part of my role is to provide that counseling to make them see differently. We have the Duluth model of one single, of a power and control wheel, and we use the cultural factors of power and control in order to make women see differently, in order to see women to help women move out of this cultural constraints which are created by those in power, those who are in control, and help her to build up her own power, help her empower herself, strengthen her inner self in order to be able to stand up for herself and stop that violence. Is one of the most important parts is stop the violence. Very few will say they want to walk out of relationships, but one of the big things is to stop the violence. And work, in many instances in the past, I've worked with the family in order to try and bring about some kind of understanding, because one of the very, very, very vulnerable factors that are part of this right now in what I've seen from New Zealand and what I'm seeing right now in Australia is the visa status. A woman is brought in either as a spouse or as a co-spouse, or what, she's brought in a different role. And at this point, she's got no visa status at all. She's a visitor or she's a spouse visa. She hasn't got her own residency, nor is she a citizen. And that makes her extremely vulnerable. So she is easy sitting duck to be threatened by hiding her passport. The one in control, the male, usually hides her passport, or threatens her with deportation, or threatens her that he will take away the children because the rules allow him to. She has no status. She will be thrown out. So she keeps quiet. So it's very, very important to explore every aspect of what is happening. The factors I have mentioned are few. There are a whole range of other factors too. And as I said, it is like an onion which has to be peeled. Each time you peel an onion, you peel one part and then comes the next, and then you peel the second and they go on to more and more ones. It's never ending. So the support services basically that we provide is once we receive a self-referral, or we receive a referral from the police or from a community person, we assess what are the presenting issues. And the first step is always to ensure the safety of the victim. Make sure that he or she in most instances that I've worked in, she is safe. I know somebody asked me once, why is it that everything is about women? When 90% plus is women victims, where is the question of supporting men if we don't get the chance so easily at all? There is no such opportunity. So we are supporting women who are the victims. Once an assessment is done and we are very clear what the woman wants, because it has to come from her, what does she want from us? Because we are supporting her. And if she does want us to be involved, giving her some support in terms of legal support, helping her with police intervention if needed, counseling, which is telephone counseling. Sometimes women do not want to come face to face because body language, things when you're on a face-to-face level, sometimes you say things which you do not want other person to know. And very often women who belong to a particular community do not want their face to be known or them to be known by a person of their same communities. And coming to think of it, most migrants belong to small communities. They do not belong to a large population. It's a small community. So everybody almost knows everybody and they do not want to be known. So telephone counseling keeps their identity. Another big part is we also support them through the telephone because of the fact they are not sure. This whole concept of confidentiality in the Western world is something quite unknown or quite different from an ethnic perspective. When we say confidentiality is maintained from an ethnic perspective, the confidentiality is on few aspects, but I'll confidentially, generally what they think is, oh, confidentiality like back home, when the neighbor will come to know and the neighbor will make eyes and tell the next person. And it's very easy for the whole community to be buzzing about what's happening in my family. And therefore I will rather keep it to myself than talk. Or maybe I can talk to an invisible person over the telephone. So we are open to telephone counseling, to telephonically support the person in order to see how we can keep them safe, how we can empower them and work through all the issues that are presenting. There are times when I have also done face-to-face counseling, and part of the process is to empower her to see that there is a different step that she can take while still continue to build herself and to build the strength to either move away from there or to challenge the person or to challenge the larger family, the wider family. Court orders, we also support the woman through court orders if that is what she chooses to. Throughout the process, a member from Hamtum is continuously with the victim and supports the victim until the victim is safe and her safety is ensured. I think I have reached the end of what I have to say, and I think I've come to the time when I have to stop. Having worked so long, there's so much I can talk about, but thank you so much for the time, and thank you from the organization's part, Sankat Mochan Samiti. You can call us at any time. The numbers are given. Please do feel free to call if needed. Thank you so much for listening to what I have to say.
Nirmala, that's how I say it correctly. You have such a huge job to do. There is so much of this trouble in the society, and with migrants and ethnic groups that come to a new country, their worlds have been turned around. So their roles and their understanding of what should be happening is very, very confusing. Besides the fact that the man has the power, and that's where you come in to protect those women. So thank you so much for doing this huge job. I congratulate you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we come to our third guest, who is Verena Youssef. I'd like to, yes, I want to introduce her now to you. She's a very active member of two Egyptian Coptic Christian churches, St. John and St. Verena, in Huntingdale and in Oakley. We understand that in their church community, they have children, youth, and young families participating very actively, and she's promised to share what their community does to keep them all so involved. So thank you, Verena, and we look forward to hearing how you manage this.
Hey everyone, sorry. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'll just make one little slight correction because my friends are probably going to kill me if I don't make this correction. I attend St. Verena and St. John's, actually one church, but it's named after two saints and it's located in Armadale. So I apologize if I miscommunicated that, but my friends are going to slaughter me if I mess it up and characterize a church. So thank you again so much for having me.
I apologize.
No, it's not you. It's probably my bad. So thank you so much again for the lovely introduction. So I'll just a little bit about myself. Yes, I can confirm that we're sharing the screen. Is that correct? Okay, awesome. So a little bit about myself. My name is Verena. I am 21 years old and I am Coptic Orthodox Christian. I was born in Egypt and my family and I migrated to Australia in the year 2008. I'm a baptized Christian. I've been a Coptic Orthodox member since birth. And I am really honored to speak about and humbled to speak about my faith and my community and how we keep the youth and young families actively engaged in the church, because that is something that we're very proud of, especially being a migrant community as well. Church is really where we all connect, we all bond over our commonalities, and that is being, a member of an ancient Christian church. And that is probably my first memory in Australia, that being connecting to a Coptic church and having people that spoke my language and looked like me. And I felt a little bit less foreign because of that community. So I'm very thankful for the Coptic church here in Australia specifically. So I'll just let us all know a little bit about the Coptic Orthodox Church. So sometimes when you speak to people about the Orthodox Church in Australia, they'll think the first church that will appear in their minds is the Greek Orthodox Church, which is definitely a very prominent Orthodox church that I'm very grateful to know many friends from. But there are also many other Orthodox churches, and that being the Coptic Church. So the word Coptic is derived from the Greek language. And so a little bit about Egyptian history. So during the ancient pharaonic times, there was a beautiful practice of language and music, and eventually ancient Egyptians were speaking this Coptic language, and it's actually a blend of a bit of Greek and the ancient Egyptian language. So the Copts pretty much mean Egyptian, and we are the indigenous people of Egypt. And we are the descendants of, simply put, the descendants of ancient Egyptians, and who were once practicing a polytheistic religion. So that means a religion that worships many gods. And in the year around 42 AD, the apostle St. Mark came and started preaching the good word and the gospel to us. So after Jesus ascended, so as a Christian, I believe in Jesus Christ. After he ascended, a lot of the apostles traveled around the world, and they started getting involved in evangelism, and they started spreading the word of God. And St. Mark came to Egypt and realized that there was hope for monotheistic faith, because there were people that had a little bit of an idea about it. And eventually his people started gravitating towards the Christian faith and were baptized, and the church grew. And that's why we call our faith the apostolic faith, because it was founded by an apostle. It is one of the oldest and most ancient Christian church there is. And despite its beautiful indigenous roots to the Egyptian homeland, we have faced a lot of persecution. We only now make 9 to 10% of the Egyptian population, And we have faced a lot of persecution through historic and modern times, whether it's under Roman emperors, regimes, different presidents, the caliphates, etc. So we've withstood 2,000 years of persecution, and that's why it's referred to as the Church of the Martyrs and one of the largest persecuted Christian minorities in the Middle East. But despite all of this, our faith is something we're very proud of, and we stand by to this day, regardless of what stands in our way. This is just a little excerpt from one of my favorite hymns. It's called My Coptic Church. It was originally in Arabic and translated English. So it gives a little brief musical history and insight into the Coptic Church, how it started off in Egypt through St. Mark, and because of our faith, we were beaten and imprisoned, we lived in oppression, we burnt, killed, and despite all of this, we still overcame tribulations and were always stood by our faith. So when we say we're the Church of Martyrs, martyrs means a witness. So we're witnesses to Christ, and we refuse to deny our faith regardless of the incentive of the ramification of actually standing by our faith. So that's why we refer to ourselves, and many other churches would say that they also have a long history of martyrdom as well. So now to get into the community aspect of the Coptic Church. When I first heard about the talk, I was trying to think about how to explain this involvement, because the love for service and involvement starts from the beginning of your life cycle. It starts off as a child. Your parents ingrain that in you. They know that they're going to raise you in a church, like your house is a church. You know, the two parents are there to raise their children in a God-fearing manner, to love God and obey him, and to love the church. So it really is an ever-evolving life cycle. And I was trying to think of the community, because I think there are different age demographics and different positions in the community. So we'll have the children, the youth, the elderly, the young couples, the couples they're about to get married, recently married couples, priests, servants, disciples, missionaries, grandparents. There are so many people that form the community, and what bonds us together is our love for Christ, the sacraments, the services, and that sense of fellowship. So I'm going to speak a little bit about specifically, I'll touch on more on the children's aspect of things and the youth aspect of things, because I'm only 21. I'm not yet to be married, nor am I an elderly, but I do. I'm very lucky to work and serve with other servants who are involved in that service. But the best thing about what I love about my church is that it's always super, super busy. There are always services on there nonstop. You can never not be at church. Every day you find yourself, during the pandemic, you're definitely on Zoom every day. And before the pandemic, you find yourself somehow at church. We have liturgies almost daily, Bible studies for different ages, different groups. We've got youth meetings. I think the most hectic day for any youth member is the Saturday. It starts off with servants meetings. So if you're a youth who's serving younger kids in Sunday school, which is a program I was speaking about a little bit later, you start off your day at 3:30. Sunday school starts at 4:30. Then there is Vespers, which is a service that prepares us for the liturgy the next day. There is youth meeting, and then midnight praises. And normally after youth meeting, you'll find us at the nearest restaurant eating our hearts out, and probably having some random burger competition down the road. So there's definitely a lot to keep us involved in, a lot to do, and we're very, very busy. And that's because we believe that when we're always together and we're in fellowship, Christ is always in our midst. And that's pretty much the verse I've put here under our church program. So children, so the church always, like I said, the home is the church, and then the actual church, the institution, always does its part to help raise the children in a God-fearing manner and to educate children on church values. There are so many services available to children. So before I graduated year 12, I was still always at church. We had Sunday school. I had and I still have a spiritual father, so a priest that I would consider as my second father, someone I go to for spiritual advice. There are children Bible studies. My favorite part of the year, church camps. There's always just your own church camp, and then there's a convention, which is pretty much all the Coptic churches in Melbourne getting together once a year and having a massive camp, and it's loads and loads of fun. A lot of interactive initiatives. We've started to utilize the media technology available to publish digital books and kind of record videos for children explaining, a Bible character or a church story, and we act it out, and they can just access with their phones by scanning a QR code. So definitely trying to utilize all the platforms available, because kids are very much advanced right now. They're much more advanced than me. So trying to make, digitalize the spiritual resources and make sure it's easily accessible. Right now, children are in school holidays. So we have a school holiday program at the moment via Zoom, and if it wasn't for the pandemic, would have an in-church program as well. But I think what starts off any, the most defining experience in a child's life at church is Sunday school. So I remember my parents took me to Sunday school from probably I was back in Egypt, so we're in KG1, like pre-kindergarten, pre-prep. And I started attending Sunday school from that age group until I finished year 12. And what Sunday school is that it's not always on Sunday, even though it's called Sunday school. It depends on the church's program. Sometimes it's on Saturday. Back in Egypt, it was on Fridays and Sundays, depending on people's weekends, because the country has 2 different weekends. It's quite interesting. And it's pretty much a program for young kids based off their ages. They get together once a week. There is always a set curriculum for that age group to cover needs, to cover social topics, to cover spiritual topics. And they get together about for 2.5 hours every weekend. And they get given a lesson about a church topic. They might have a lesson about or a debate or a panel speaking on a social topic. And we just make sure that we cover a lot of their spiritual needs and address topics that they may be curious about. And I think now this generation is extremely curious. There's always a lot of questions, and it's just best to address it from a very transparent, educated manner than them sourcing their answers from elsewhere that could be completely wrong and mischaracterized. So Sunday school started actually back in the 1900s, and it started off by this man right here. His name is Archdeacon Habib Gerges, and he was a young man who's an archdeacon. He's a Coptic man who really valued education. He valued learning. He was someone that was very involved in church history. He was a student at theological college. He had a deep love for writing books and learning about the church values. And he realized that there was a void, and that the young children didn't have the necessary foundations to grow spiritually. And he thought of Sunday school. And it was a very small idea, but it pretty much spread like wildfire. And now it's so prominent. It's in every church all around the world. Like, everyone knows that if you go to church, you're going to attend Sunday school. And this was at a time as well where Christian education wasn't integrated in the Egyptian education system. And even though it's integrated today, it's not to the extent that we would love it to be. But he just wanted to make sure that children had a chance to interact with their brothers and sisters in Christ. They were able to learn about Orthodox values. And he did that all through Sunday school. So just a little bit about his love for learning and education. He was also a religious teacher. He served many popes, and he was a very intelligent man. And he was the highest ranking graduate of the seminary's first graduating class of 1898. So Archdeacon Habib Gerges had a vision, and through a lot of prayer and hard work, God guided him towards the establishment of Sunday school. And it was, like I said, it was established in the year 1900. He designed that curriculum, and they used to have a council or a committee of Sunday school teachers just to make sure that what they're teaching is uniform and it's in line with church values. Because at the end of the day, it's not some motivational individual topic that you're going to be hearing about every week. It is something that reflects the church values, and it's in unison with the Coptic Orthodox values. And it pretty much within a few years, it was very common in every church. And that's why I'm very thankful today to have had Sunday school and to have had experienced that throughout my childhood, because that's where I learned my Bible story. That's where I learned about my faith, where I learned Coptic hymnology. So despite the use of persecution, we've persevered and we've preserved the Coptic language. And our church is a very musical church full of beautiful hymns and rites, and that's where I learned all of these things, and I learned the Coptic language. So I'm very thankful for Sunday school, and Sunday school has always been very fun. So every summer, like I said, we would have convention, church camps, would have church holiday programs. We also had this competition or festival, we like to call it a competition because we're a bit competitive, called the Summer Festival, and it was established by His Holiness Pope Shenouda, which is not the current Pope, but the preceding Pope. And he just wanted a festival and an event to unite all the Copts in each diocese or in each country or in each state. And he wanted them to come about, learn the Bible study, learn church history, dogma, rituals, lives of saints, church hymnology in a fun, interactive way. And what was the best way, he thought, was having this festival and having mini competitions. And now we have also, besides the spiritual aspect of things, we have sport events with other churches where the kids get together, verse each other in some soccer, basketball, netball games. It's all fun. Everyone gets a trophy by the end of it because, you know, we were all winners in God's eyes. But it's just a super fun way for kids to learn about the church faith. And even as a youth, we do it until now, and it's probably the best. It's a highlight of my summer every year. This is a photo of our current Pope, His Holiness Pope Tawadros. This is a photo of St. Mark the Evangelist, who founded the Coptic Orthodox Church. This is a little image of the Coptic Cathedral in Egypt. And every year, this program has a theme that the curriculum echoes, and it's also in age groups. So it's pretty fun to be a Coptic Christian, a young Coptic Christian for sure. Now, as a youth member, so after graduating from Sunday school, you know, you would think life is boring, but no, we have a lot of initiatives that keep us involved in the church. So we have youth meetings. Like I said, it's normally every Saturday night in my church, but every church has their own schedule where we get together, again, talk about deep, important theological topics or social topics. We get together in fellowship. We have fun activities after, whether it be movie night, you know, cooking competition, going out to a restaurant, whatever it is. We're just always together as a group. Like all my family and friends are, you know, people from church that I spend my weekends with on a weekly basis. We still have the summer convention, but we also have a chance to now serve in the church. So now we've spent years in Sunday school. Our faith has been enriched and developed, and we have the opportunity to now serve kids in Sunday school. So it is that cycle that I keep speaking about. And for us to serve, if we wish to serve, because service takes form in various ways, but for us to serve, we can undertake a discipleship course that equips us with the necessary theological understandings. And not just that, but also a lot of focus on childhood development and psychology. Since we are working with children, we need to understand that each age group has different needs, and there are different ways to approach them when you're educating them. I've been a Sunday school servant for only 2 years now, and it's an experience where you learn things so much from the kids, and it helps you spiritually grow. And I've been serving the year 9s and 10s, so the very curious bunch, but I'm very thankful that they have that avenue because I think now in a world where it's very much anti-faith, anti-religion, it's good not to feel isolated and to feel connected with a community that is like-minded. And through youth meetings, then I would think youth meeting plants the seeds for other youth initiatives like soup kitchen, Bible studies. We reach missionary trips. We have a lot of missionary trips and work in Fiji and the Solomon Islands. We have an orphanage there, schools and churches there, and the youth often visits these islands on a yearly basis. But again, COVID has thrown a spanner in the works. But nevertheless, we always keep in mind that even though we are one community under the church roof, there is a bigger community out there to serve, regardless of their religious status. And we're always trying to do our best to be ambassadors of Christ and to help those that are most vulnerable. And we do that through missionary as well. And that all again comes from the youth meeting where we plan ideas and we plan fundraising initiatives. And I guess it's just a good avenue to facilitate those other initiatives as well. We also try to jump on podcasts, apps, etc., where we can, again, digitalize spiritual content and social content, and give it out there to anyone who has an access to an iPhone or a laptop, whether Christian or non-Christian, Orthodox or non-Orthodox. So youth meeting is pretty much where it's just a seed, and then every other initiative is the branch is planted out. And the reason why the Coptic Church emphasizes on youth and focuses so much on youth involvement is because we know that the youth is a future of the church. So His Holiness Pope Shenouda, who was the mastermind behind the summer festivals, once said, "A church without a youth is a church without a future, and a youth without the church is a youth without a future." So we know that considering we're an ancient faith, there could have been many opportunities where we died out, but we didn't. We're always strong with our faith, and that's because younger generations have kept their faith and they can pass it on to their children as well. We know that for the church to continue and for the community to grow, the youth need to be at the forefront of it all, because we have so much potential and we have a chance to impact future generations and keep that cycle going. And I also know as a young youth, I wouldn't be grounded and I wouldn't have a love for Christ and have the supportive community I have today without the church and God. I would feel a big hole in my heart if I didn't have my religion and my community. And I see that when I'm studying at university, a lot of people long for that sense of community and long for that sense of spirituality. And they try to manufacture it in different ways and they fail miserably. And I'm lucky I have that avenue, and I hope to share it with as many people as possible. So after you finish youth, some people in that age group start, getting into relationships, etc. And there are a lot of young couples who are about to get married, and the church values the importance of marriage, because marriage is, it is a sacrament. And so marriage is a sacrament. Sorry, I was just reading the comments. I think it was a mistake I made with one of the dates. Thank you, Shashi. I really apologize for that. So we believe a sacrament is a sacred mystery. And when you get married with your partner, with your spouse, you become one. You become one in Christ. And when you have children, you raise them in a Christ-like manner. And there are a lot of resources available for young couples in preparation for marriage, because marriage is a big deal. Unfortunately, society has diluted the meaning and the importance of marriage, but it's a very big promise to make, and you have to be equipped spiritually, mentally for such a commitment. So the church has premarital counseling available for a lot of young couples, and also for couples who are recently married. There is a lot of young couple meetings available because, marriage is not easy, and the first couple of years tend to be very challenging for many people. So we have these avenues available to make sure that people don't feel alone in their relationship journey, and to always remind them to put God in the midst of their relationship. But there are also a lot of resources on social aspects of marriage as well. And this is a really beautiful photo of a Coptic marriage ceremony. You're both wearing crowns, and you put your heads together in front of the altar, and that is kind of marks the point where you become one in God's eyes. So it's just a really beautiful photo. A lot of beautiful royal dressings as well. It's a very important and beautiful sacrament. So after that, you get married, so you become, most likely a lot of people become a parent. So then again, you repeat that cycle. When you become a parent, you have kids, and then you want to take your kids to Sunday school, just how your parents took to Sunday school, and that cycle continues. But of course, being a parent is very difficult, and the church understands that. That's why we have Sunday school, and we have programs for different children's age groups and different needs, so parents don't feel alone raising their children. And there are a lot of parent development courses as well. And a lot of young couples and parents have a spiritual father, that sort of like a counselor that they go to speak about problems they have, or just to seek spiritual guidance on a lot of topics. And there are also a lot of Bible studies for parents, a lot of other initiatives for parents, young family camps. So always reminding people that they're not alone, and there's so many ways that they can feel connected, and they also get involved, because a lot of these parents then serve in Sunday school or serve in any other church service as well. So we just keep the cycle going as much as we can, And it's just a beautiful way for you to gain so much, but also to give back. So just a couple of verses about, the importance of a family and a Christ-like family, and the importance of parents to be, to always put God in the center of their family and their home. There are two beautiful verses. So one in Proverbs, it says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. So eventually your parents are going to let go of you, whether it's through when you get married or you move out to work and study. And that my parents have always made sure that I was ready for that. And they've always planted the seeds and reminded me to put God in the center of my works and my studies, and to always remember him in everything that I do. So when I'm alone for a certain period of time, or when I move on to the next chapter of my life, I don't forget that. And also another verse from Ephesians, and you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. So, and that is from Ephesians. So always to remind your children to love God in all that they do. And then eventually you would enter the elderly stage of life, and you're not forgotten. There are many church services to keep elderly connected. There are church trips. We have a Coptic hostel, liturgies, Bible studies, special visitations for the elderly, and the youth do that. So probably my most prominent memory of my Sunday school life is when I used to visit the elderly in the Coptic hostel on Palm Sunday, which marked the beginning of a Holy Week just before Easter. And we would help the elderly make little donkeys out of the leaves, because on Palm Sunday Jesus rode a donkey, and he rode through Jerusalem, and everyone put palms on the floor. So we would help them out, make little palm-shaped donkeys, donkey-shaped palm leaf, and we would sing beautiful hymns. And that is, I always remember this every Palm Sunday, and I always try to do it as well. You can just go and check up on the elderly, because a lot of them don't have family members, or they're alone, their partner has passed away. So again, when you serve someone, that ripple effect takes place, and that person will serve the next person that they see, and it will always continue. A little special initiative just to finish off my presentation as well. So one of my youth servants, who is a parent of his own, Sherene right here, these are his parents, and they were awarded the Order of Australia Medal this year because they started an elderly club, a senior citizens club in their church, where they would pretty much gather on a weekly basis at church and connect with older people that were alone or just needed someone to play games with or talk with. And they would also help out people who needed assistance to be commuted to their medical appointments, or just need some translation services. And they've run this for many, many years because they themselves understood that when they moved to a new country, they understood that feeling of loneliness and the importance of a community. And they started this seniors club at their local Coptic Orthodox church, and it's grown so much. And they're very much deserving of this award because of their hard work. And they understood that just how they were served when they first migrated here, and because they're so involved in the church service, and they understand that one of the beautiful teachings of Christianity is to serve other people. They did the same thing, and they're serving now the vulnerable in their community, and they just keep that ripple effect going. So there, like I said, there are various different ways the church has services for different age demographics, and that is how they maintain their active connection to the church. And it all just starts off when you're a child in the beginning of that life cycle, where your parents plant the seeds, the church plants the seeds, and that your love for church and the service eventually grows. And I'm very thankful to be part of the Coptic Orthodox community, and to be part of such a supportive group of people who have helped me through so many things, especially during lockdown. And I couldn't be thankful for such loving connections. So just to finish off my presentation, I know we're going through a very difficult time right now, and there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of difficulties facing different people. This is one of my favorite Bible verses that my priest reminded me of a few days ago when I was expressing my anxieties. And it says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, but by prayer and supplication, With thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guide your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. And that photo, it's a beautiful photo of Jesus holding a little lamb, sheep, and it just reminds you that it comes from a story where Jesus finds a lost sheep. That there's 99, there are 100 sheep, and there's one that is lost. So he has the 99. And he can't find the final one. And he goes out to look for that final lost sheep. And it just reminds you that God is not chasing after the people that are grounded. God is always there knocking on the hearts of those that need him most and those who are lost. And I've definitely felt very lost throughout the past 2 years during the pandemic. But this is the verse and this is the imagery that I'm always reminded of by my community and by my spiritual father. So yeah. Thank you so much for having me again. I really appreciate this opportunity.
I want to thank you very much for informing us about the history of the Coptic Church, which is a fascinating history, a very ancient history. But it's also so exciting to listen to you and the work that your youth does in the church, because that prepares you right through life. So you go from childhood on through all the different stages of life, and in the end, you're there to help the elderly as well. So you're preparing all those little children for their role in life. Thank you so much, and keep up the enthusiasm, because it's very, very important for a community to be able to keep together and to support each other.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, I would like to welcome Joscelyn Kumar Mills, who is our fourth guest tonight. She is a member of the Baha'i faith. Joscelyn was born in Malaysia to parents of Chinese descent, studied and worked in Singapore, then married and started a family in Australia. Joscelyn is a very busy mother of two, juggling work and homeschooling for her children, which is at the moment a very stressful life to lead. Joscelyn has a background in business administration and early childhood education. However, she is currently focusing on community health through remedial therapy. She also works as a reflexologist, serving the community in Melbourne. Joscelyn's service with the Baha'i community started in Malaysia when she was only 12 years old, engaging with teaching moral and spiritual education for the 4-year-old group in her neighborhood. She has served as a volunteer for the past 25 years in communities, building efforts with the focus on empowering children and youth, which is always our aim, to strengthen the youth. Joscelyn will now. You will now share with us some of your slides. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Myra. Thank you so much for all the organizing committee. And yay, Melbourne, we survived this pandemic. Thank you so much for being here.
Look what we've got here.
I know we are running actually quite long, so I'll just try to speed up as much as possible. Hello again, friends. Obviously, being a volunteer for the past, it's actually 27 years. I just did my calculation again. I'm so sorry about that. For the past 27 years, being a volunteer serving with the Baha'i community, I just would like to go through this very quickly with you of how the role of a woman, that you can actually, you don't need to be a superstar. You don't need to be, recognized to the world. You don't need to be a YouTuber, that you can still serve your community as long as you see these children and youth that we are actually trying to help them, especially during this hard time. So therefore, at the beginning, I would like to share with you some of the Baha'i perspective with regards of the importance or the role of women in the society. So over a century, for the first time in the history of revealed religion, Baha'u'llah, founder of the Baha'i faith, proclaimed the equality of men and women. He did not leave this pronouncement as an ideal or pious hope, but wove it as a basic factor into the fabric of his social order. He's supported by laws requiring the same standard of education for women as for men, and equality of rights in society. Equality of sexes is, for Baha'is, a spiritual and moral standard essential for the unification of the planet and unfoldment of world order. Without the qualities, talents, and skills of both women and men, full economic and social development of the planet becomes impossible. So therefore, there's a quote from Baha'u'llah: "The world of humanity is possessed of two wings, the male and the female. So long as these two wings are not equivalent in strength, the bird will not fly, until womankind reaches the same degree as man, until she enjoys the same arena of activity. Extraordinary attainment for humanity will not be realized. Humanity cannot wing its way to heights of real attainment." So therefore, the next video, I would like to share with you a recent event that the Democratic Republic of the Congo, celebrating the advancements of women in the society of what we are doing today in Monash in Melbourne. So there are more than 2,000 people from young to senior, from different tribes and different faiths, and they get together, and let's watch this short clip. And friends, this year, Baha'i around the world will be commemorating the 100 years passing of Abdul Baha, who is the son of Baha'u'llah. And everyone will actually get an invitation soon from the Baha'i of Monash, Baha'i community of Monash. So therefore, I would like to share these two quotations by Abdul Baha that talks about the importance of women, especially mothers. For mothers are the first educators, the first mentors, and truly it is the mothers who determine the happiness, the future greatness, the courteous way and learning and judgment, the understanding and the faith of their little ones. Work ye for the guidance of the women of that land. Teach the young girls and the children, so that the mothers may educate their little ones from their earliest days, thoroughly train them, rear them to have a goodly character and good morals, guide them to all the virtues of humankind, prevent the development of any behavior that will be worthy of blame, and foster them in the embrace of Baha'i education. Thus shall these tender infants be nurtured at the breast of the knowledge of God and his love. Thus shall they learn perseverance in all things, the will to advance, high-mindedness and high resolve, chastity and purity of life. Thus shall they be enabled to carry to a successful conclusion whatsoever they undertake. So Baha'u'llah said, the betterment of the world can be accomplished through pure and goodly deeds. So what is community building means to us from the video that we have seen? Building vibrant communities. A vibrant community is one in which spiritual and material progress of all members is considered and everyone feels a sense of belonging and purpose. Australian Baha'is are committed to cultivating vibrant communities by developing capacities for service and fostering true friendships with all people, founded on mutual support and cooperation. Service to others enhances our intellectual and spiritual growth, and at the same time allows us to give back to our local communities and make a difference in society. These two aspects, helping others and helping ourselves, become one process. So therefore, spiritual and moral education for children in junior youth empowerment program that build their capacity to serve as agents of change in their communities are some of the activities towards this community building effort. So friends, today we only have time to talk about spiritual and moral education for children. And that is what I'm very actually excited, and thank you so much for allowing me to share with you of what I have learned from the Baha'i faith with regards to this. The great being says, regard man as a mind rich in gems of inestimable value. Education can alone cause it to reveal its treasures and enable mankind to benefit therefrom. So what is this education that we can understand from this paragraph of Baha'u'llah? Is it just something that we can learn from school and university or college? Abdu'l-Baha stated that education is of three kinds: material, human, and spiritual. Here they will be given an opportunity to further their understandings of the later type of education, by the aid of which the spiritual nature, the higher nature of the individual is developed. Children are the most precious treasure a community can possess, for in them are the promise and guarantee of the future. They bear the seeds of the character of future society, which is largely shaped by what the adults constituting the community do or fail to do with respect to children. They are a trust no community can neglect with impunity, an all-embracing love of children, the manner of treating them, the quality of the attention shown to them, the spirit of adult behavior toward them. These are all among the vital aspects of the requisite attitude, which is what all our three beautiful ladies have shared. That it's really bring up a lot of point of like how we can help these children. Across Australia, growing numbers of Baha'i children's classes are being conducted in neighborhoods, community level, as well as some state schools. The classes aim to help children in acquiring spiritual qualities such as love, forgiveness, truthfulness, justice, and generosity. And these are the spiritual qualities that we can find in many of the holy scriptures of all the religion around the world. They also help to develop patterns of behavior that lead to a fruitful and productive life. They are taught to incorporate service to the community as part of their everyday life, become aware of God's love for humanity and his unfailing assistance. Children who have reached age of 12 can continue this educational process with further age-appropriate materials, which we call the Junior Youth Empowerment Program. Eventually, they reach a stage where they are empowered to take personal responsibility for their own spiritual development and contribute to the well-being of society. Spiritual education for children as conceived in the Baha'i faith differs fundamentally from the imposition of dogmatic beliefs, and it aims to foster instead a love for knowledge, an open attitude towards learning, and a constant desire to investigate reality. Friends, these are just some of the example of the children classes runs in Australia. Then obviously you can see that they are not just for Baha'i children, they're open up for the whole community from different walks of life. And even during this pandemic, children classes are still going on using Zoom, Google Meet, or WebEx, whenever that, like our community will be able to access to internet. Otherwise, we'll be able to actually post them packages that the family can actually help the children to do this extra activity if they do not have any internet access. And these are some of the examples of junior youth empowerment program that is running. And part of the service project here, as you can see, that is to build community garden, and they build they learn through a series of texts on how they can build friendship. How do they actually learn about their own identity, build identity, work with each other, and as well as giving back service to the community. Friends, children classes is not just happening in Australia. It happens all over the world. And these are some of the examples in Zambia, Mongolia, Colombia, Malawi, Canada, Turkey, Kiribati, and the United States. And there's many more that I do not actually have time to share it with you today because we have limited time. So therefore, I would like to share this simple video, a simple setting of how children classes can be formed in the neighborhood. And this is an example in Broome, Western Australia. And you can see some of the simple way of how we actually teach us the spiritual qualities or virtues, with even a little one are joining in as well.
We are all born with spiritual qualities like justice, kindness, respect, and love. At children's class, we learn about these virtues, what they mean, and how we can practice them in our life in order to nurture our growth. We learn about the oneness of humanity and that we all come from the same place. no matter our size, shape, colour or culture.
Thy spirit is my place of revelation.
I love children's class because at the end we get to play. I love children's class because we get to do lots of fun. I love children's class because we get to learn about God. And kindness, love, prayer, God.
Join us, come and join us in our quest for unity. It's a way of life for you and me. You and me.
Thy spirit is my place of revelation. Cleanse it for.
We do art, songs, games and activities.
Cleanse it for manifestation, manifestation, manifestation.
We love children's classes because they've learnt how to be nice and kind to each other, using all the virtues and core values for life.
Sanctify.
Children's classes can change the community little by little. Let's empower the future generation.
Thy spirit is my place of revelation. Cleanse it for all my manifestation. Thy spirit is my place of revelation. Cleanse it for mine. Manifestation, 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 manifestation.
Well, friends, I would like to conclude here. Because of this building community effort, this is not just from children class. We do have JY Empowerment Program, as well as friends who would like to be part of this community program, that we have a series of texts that we actually learn together how to build a vibrant community. So therefore, should you have any inquiries, please do not hesitate to email me, or if you'd like to know more information with regards to this community building effort, you can log on to Baha'i.org. And I will leave the email here if anyone would like to actually ask more questions with regards to that. Yeah, been living here in Australia for the past 17 years. And it was such a vibrant community, as you can see. But obviously, we can't see everyone today on our screen. But as you can hear all the beautiful stories that friends have shared. And I really hope that we can all actually work together to help each other and build this vibrant community. Doesn't matter what background we are. Thank you so much for your time again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your talk on the Baha'i faith. I hear the humility and the kindness coming through with all the things that you've told us, the whole program. What I loved also was the women in the Congo being encouraged so much to do their work and to be equal to the men. And the thing is that if you empower women, you empower the children, you empower the society. And that's what you're working towards. So everybody will be equal in the end.
Oh, absolutely. When we find equality between our spiritual life, not just the material, I guess that like the word equality here is more towards having a balance within our own life, as well as, you know, in our spiritual world. So I guess that like that's why it's so beautiful to hear all this. We have prayers here tonight. We have empowerment words from the Bible, the quotation from the Bible, and I just thought like it's such a spiritual upliftment to be in this space. Thank you so much for organizing this.
It has been most encouraging and enlightening. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Myra.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Now we come to our final guest, who is Deb Leigh from the Glen Waverley Uniting Church. Deb was led to start the Choir of Hope in 2019, and it has brought a small group of women together who were in need of restoring hope in their lives and to address isolation. Deb Leigh has been involved in singing and music from a young age. Her conducting experience was through another church choir, which began in 1986. So she's been conducting for a very long time, and which continues today. Deb believes music to be powerful in bringing people together, allowing expression of emotion, faith, and hope. Deb is an occupational therapist and osteopath, and outside private practice, she teaches at RMIT. Deb will tell us a little bit about her choir, and then we will watch a recording which has been made of the Uniting Church in Glen Waverley earlier this year, when they could be face to face and sing together. Thank you, Deb.
Lovely. Thank you, Mira. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We were originally asked to come and sing at this event when it was going to be a live event, and the girls were very excited to come and join in this interfaith gathering. Unfortunately, due to lockdown, of course, we're on this forum. So tonight you will see a video clip of the ladies. It's actually a video clip of when we sang at the Uniting Church a couple of years ago. The choir formed a couple of years ago. I was one of the reasons the choir formed was that I was being part of this Uniting Church, which is a beautiful church in Glen Waverley. The Uniting Church being, just to give you a little bit of history if you don't know, a unification of the Presbyterian, Methodist and Congregational churches in the 70s. In 1977, they unified and became the Uniting Church. And my family's been part of that church for a long time. And it was during one of the services that I was sitting in where the Reverend Neil Peters, who's the minister at the church currently, was inviting people to participate and step up into doing more community projects. And I felt at that time that God spoke to me and said, I send you to start a new choir. I'm being very aware of the prevalence and the difficulties that women are facing in the society at the moment, particularly with isolation and with issues around domestic violence. And we've certainly touched on a little bit of that tonight. So I felt led to start a new choir of women who particularly have felt social isolation and who may have been victims of family violence or domestic abuse. So it started a few years ago, and it's a delightful group of women, and you will see in a video clip shortly some images of and a song that the girls sang at the Glen Waverley Uniting Church. But just to give you a little bit of background, the women that have been invited, and I invite all women who would like to come and join a choir to contact me. We're always open to new members. It's a beautiful group of women who love to get together in a very safe space, who come to enjoy community, enjoy the company of other women, some of who have been from backgrounds of domestic violence or isolation or grief. And we come together and we have a sing, we have heaps of fun together. I love to sing. Singing brings such joy. And it's not just me that thinks so, that scientific research shows how singing can improve your mood, it can lower your stress levels, It improves your feeling of self-worth and improves breath control. My background in learning and being involved in music from a young age has given me many opportunities to sing and play instruments and be involved in choirs and orchestras and all varieties of musical groups. And I feel that music is such a gift and I treasure it very much. It's not one that I take for granted at all, particularly now that my own girls at home are learning musical instruments. I think what a gift it was for my parents to give me that opportunity too, and what a sacrifice it is sometimes listening to someone who's learning an instrument. But really, coming together and creating music together can be a very healing and nurturing environment that can allow people to grow and grow in confidence where their confidence may have been destroyed in the past through various circumstances. So that's just by way of introducing the clip that is about to come. The ladies that you will see in the clip are not from a musical background at all. Some of them are very hesitant to come because they have no experience in singing, and nor necessarily a Christian background either, which is the background that I'm from and that the church that we rehearse in. However, they've trusted and they've come together and have really enjoyed some very therapeutic and nurturing times together. And I will hand over to Phil now, who will give you this video clip, which is us at the church. We will sing a song, but one of the members of the choir, Lisa, gives a little bit of a personal insight as to how the choir has been for her as a participant. So thank you, Phil.
Morning, church. It's lovely to see you all here today. It's lovely to see some visitors, and it's fabulous to have the Choir of Hope with us this morning. Could you all turn to the person next to you and say, "You are amazing"? And you are amazing for many reasons. One of them is that you are a church that have supported and embraced this beautiful choir who come on a Friday morning to rehearse and do many things other than just music. And I'd like to introduce you to Lisa, who's one of our choir members, who'd just like to say a couple of things about what the Choir of Hope is for her.
Thank you, Deb. First, I'd like to say on behalf of the Choir of Hope, thank you so much for welcoming us here this morning. Thank you that we can be part of all of this, and thank you that we get to practice in your church every Friday. It's a lovely, lovely space here, and it's just beautiful. There's so many beautiful people, so thank you for that. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Choir of Hope. So I joined in May, I think about May, and I came because of my beautiful friend Claire, who is also in the choir. And so Claire and I, well, everyone in the Choir of Hope it's a choir for women who just need a space to grow again, I guess you could say. And so Claire told me about this choir. And it sounded amazing, and I was in this place that was quite difficult at the time, and I came along, and at first it was really hard I felt I was in a place where I felt very unworthy and where I didn't belong, and so it was really hard at first to try and overcome all of that. And then as time went on, things changed, and that's due to. So I really look forward to it every Friday. It was one of the highlights of my week, and that was due to these beautiful women who are sitting here in front of me, who are just the most amazing women. and all with beautiful stories to tell, and we just have so much we share on a Friday. And the other reason it's amazing is because of this amazing woman. Deb is just the most beautiful person, and every time you come in on a Friday, she has this smile, she has this gentle spirit, she has these arms which are open wide and give you a huge hug, just holds you when you need holding. And she has the hugest heart that it's just amazing what Deb does for us. And I was thinking this morning about this, and I was thinking she's kind of like a mother hen, and we're all her little chicks, and we go off during the week and we do our things, and then each Friday we come in and she just welcomes us and she gathers us in and she tucks us in under her wings, and she has this space that she gives us which is warm and loving and kind and understanding and safe and secure, and it's just the most amazing space that I have just, I don't know, from my own perspective, I've grown so much from being in this space with Deb and all these beautiful women. And now the choir has literally given me my voice back. So not only in singing, but just in my own life, I have a voice now, and I can stand tall and I can feel proud, and I know that I'm worthy, and I know that I'm loved, and I know that I belong. And it's just the most amazing thing, and I love Deb so much, and I love all these lovely women so much, and it's just, I can't say enough about how much this choir means to me, and it really is the choir of hope. So, and I should also say too, this is our very first performance when we're going to sing for you this morning, our very first performance, and it's really special that we get to do our first performance for all of you, because you're the ones who've welcomed us here and given us such a wonderful place to be. So thank you so much.
Every person is special. Every person is created to love, to be loved, and to be a valuable part of their community. The Choir of Hope is an amazing group of women who've had the courage to choose to have hope in the midst of their circumstances. And they chose to take action by arriving on the doorstep of Glen Waverley Uniting Church, and they come every Friday morning and they step into the unknown. It's a choir, it's a newly formed choir, and they don't have any singing background. They came alone, most of them, but with hope that things can get better than they were. The choir is more than the sum of its parts. They're individual women who've had feelings of isolation, of grief, of fear, some who've suffered abuse, and some who have supported women in those difficult circumstances. But it's become a choir with many voices joining together to speak out, to speak up, to sing in harmony, and to sing together and enjoy the myriad benefits of having music in your soul. More than being about musicianship, the choir is about relationships, friendships, building each other up, encourage each person to find their own voice. In the midst of our brokenness, it's not uncommon to hear a cry of, "Where's God in all of this? I can't hear his voice." If you have ears to listen, you will hear the voice of God right here.
What a wonderful evening we've had. We were going to have question and answers, but I think it's getting a bit late for that. And what I'd like to suggest is if any of you do have questions, if you email them to me and I'll circulate them amongst the speakers. So thank you so much. Now I'm going to ask Faru Direction, who's our Vice President, and she'd like to make a few finishing remarks. Thank you, Faru.
Okay, good evening, everybody. It's been such a beautiful night. I really don't want to finish. So at the same time, I would like to extend an informative contribution of our amazing speakers tonight. 5 amazing women, 5 faith, 5 inspiring stories and experiences. You and people like you are contributing to our society and betterment of the world. Thank you for sharing your insight with us tonight. We are delighted to have had so many visitors and supporters and friends of Monash Interfaith Gathering in attendance tonight. My goodness, we had over 100 people online. Thank you very much for coming. Myra, a very special thank you for taking on the task of emceeing tonight. And you did it with a great style. Thank you. Philip Gould, our technology expert, a big thank you for all your efforts. May I also extend a very special thanks to the hardworking committee who have prepared this event so thoughtfully. And Pamela, Monash's multicultural officer, thank you very much for your support and initial vision and concept of this forum in the first place. For the generous support of Monash Council, who significantly assist in funding our program, a big thank you. At our next bi-monthly meeting on the 5th of November, 25th of November, we will be inviting a guest speaker as part of November's 16th Day of Action Against Domestic Violence. We hope that you will come again and join us in raising awareness of this important subject that is a blight in the history of mankind. Tonight's meeting has been recorded with the speaker's permission and will be on our website ready for your access in a couple of days. As you know, everyone is welcome to come to our meetings, and we always welcome new members. As we close, another couple of minutes of Ilana Kate's Chernon's music will be played. Once the webinar master closes the meeting, a brief survey will be emailed to you that we ask you to fill and return. If you do not have the time to fill it in tonight, a follow-up email will be sent to you, to all the participants tomorrow. and you can fill it in then. And we will be grateful to have the feedback from you. Now I have a special request to all the panelists and speakers, please. Would all the panelists and speakers turn on your videos and sound on, and also click on gallery view on the top right-hand side of your screen.